Hi, we're going to talk about rigging an 18-inch one-line gens this morning, which we want to do for the city sunfish boats that are sailed at the windlasses. So the first thing that you would do if this isn't pre-measured is you would take a measuring tape and you would measure 18 inches down from where the metal touches the mast cap. And at that point, you would put a circumferential line with a marker around. This one has a very light old one, so for today we're going to use that line. Okay, so once you've got that line, you can set the measuring tape aside for the moment. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to make a loop. So you're going to use a piece of non-stretch, is very important when you do this, line that's going to go through the mast cap, and then you're going to pull it together and make a loop. I recommend using a sail tie to bring the loop together, but some people do use tape. So what you've got is you have a sail tie and you're going to make a loop. So I'm going to take this one off just so we can see how it's done. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the line and bring it down, and then we're going to marry it so the two parts of the line are kissing on this side. This is pre-measured, so if you were setting this up, what you would want to do is make the loop so that when the two ends are kissing, it's right at your magic marker line at 18 inches. At that point, you're going to take your sail tie and you're going to pull the two lines together, and you're going to tie a single square knot, because all this does is it keeps the two lines together for when the halyard goes through. But sometimes it comes off, so you don't want to tie a lot of knots. So now that I've got that set up, I'm going to go to my spars. The spars for windlasses currently have two pieces of tape on them. They're 18 inches apart, so that when you move the halyard from one place to another, it will match the 18 inches on the mast. So what you'll do is, if you don't have your spars set up already, you will take your main halyard position and you'll measure your 18 inches from the bottom of your tape, because as you can see here, you always put your halyard below your tape. That's the top of the mast, the top spar, that's the bottom. Because what happens when you go through the mast cap is this pulls upward. So you always want the tape above the halyard. So this is set up with a piece of tape here and a piece of tape 18 inches lower. Since we are dropping to a gens, we are going to use the lower piece of tape to drop to a gens position to depower the boat. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the halyard off from where it is, and then we're going to move it below the other piece of tape. So you're going to tie your clove hitch down here. Okay, and the way you want this to run is you want the halyard to run towards where the mast is. So you want it coming off this side, or the right side of your top spar, and you want it below your knot. So you want it to look basically like that. You want this to line up in the same angle as your main halyard. And the way you do that is, since this is basically going almost really where the mast cap is, you want this line to come off in line with the nut at the base of your spars. So this is coming off that. In order to make this not move around a lot, it's generally helpful to tighten it up a little bit so it doesn't move as you're putting it back up. We're going to go back to the right side of the boat because we always rig from the right. And we're going to come up here. The only difference in how we're rigging this today is we're going to go through the loop rather than through the mast cap. And all of the other parts in terms of making this tight are all going to be exactly the same as they were. So we're going to bring our halyard through the loop from left to right, so it's headed towards the fair lead as it comes down. And then we're going to take our gooseneck and line it up. And then we're going to take our mast. And we're going to look up when we do this to make sure nothing is fouled. And then we're going to take our mast and put it through our gooseneck. So now we have the halyard coming around the front of the mast. Okay? So it's going through the loop and it's coming around the front of the mast. And basically the rest of the rigging from here is exactly the same as the way you would rig the Sunfish normally. Thank you for your attention. Good?
Quick shot of the gallery. Perfect.
What do you say that's a comfort level too? Like Marty, she raised 90 pounds soaking wet.
Right.
But you know, last week she said that she felt overpowered.
She was overpowered.
Yes.
She could not keep her boat flat.
Right.
When you're going, so what you do is when you're going to windward, the most efficient way to go to windward is to have your sail pulled in all the way to the corner of the boat, basically. And if you have your sail pulled into the corner of the boat and your dagger board all the way down, and you're going to windward in the base of the baseline wind, not in the gusts, but in the baseline wind that you're sailing in, you're better off in a gens. Okay? Because then you can keep the boat flat and the boat doesn't slide sideways.
So you're sailing and then what? You grab that?
No, they're not adjustable.
You just hook it up to begin with.
You hook it up to begin with. There's a few women in Davis Islands who sail 100% of the time with a gens in. Some of them sail with a 20-inch gens. One of them won the rainbow with a gens in, and it was not that breezy that day. So you can be competitive sailing a gens 100% of the time.
Before you go out, you hook it up. You have to decide that.
You have to decide it before you go out. Now today, I would not put a gens in, but if there's a storm or any wind breeze that's coming in the afternoon, you want to put a gens in. Robin asked a question about the gooseneck and where the gooseneck should be. The gooseneck, most of the boats also have marker on them. We like to keep the gooseneck between 16 inches. Can I have that tape measure back, please? We like to keep the gooseneck for beginners 16 inches from, again, we're always going to measure from the metal, not from the black. And we're going to come down, and 16 inches is here. And as you'll note, there's a black line here in marker, and it's worn because that's the standard position that we're going to sail this boat in. So normally you would want your gooseneck between 16 and 20 inches, which is about here, and there's probably a black line over here because these were marked by me a couple of years ago. So how do you decide where your gooseneck should be? Your gooseneck should be the smallest number possible where you can keep the boat flat going to windward in your baseline breeze on starboard. So the way you figure that out is you check it before you go out. You take the boat out on the race course, you sail to windward, and you see if you can keep the boat flat. If you can keep the boat flat in the baseline breeze, you're okay. If you can't, then you start adjusting things on the boat to depower the sail so that you can sail to windward, keeping the boat flat. So one of the things you can do is you can bring the gooseneck back, and that brings the point of, it brings the middle of your sail basically more forward, so it allows you to keep the boat flat. And then you try it again. So, and then you adjust this before the race starts. The other adjustments that some of the boats have and some of them don't have is an outhaul and a cunningham. So you want to have your outhaul, which is at the back of the boat, pretty much in a mid position when you're sailing. You want a few scallops, but you don't want it very, very tight. And if you have a cunningham, you want the cunningham basically loose unless the breeze comes up, and then you can tighten the cunningham down. So while you're underway, before the race, you can set the gooseneck with this being off and your outhaul being in a mid position. During the race, if the breeze comes up, you want to again move that point forward to give you more control and be able to keep your boat flat. So while you're racing, if you have a cunningham, you can cinch your cunningham down and tighten the luff of your sail.
What is a cunningham?
It tightens the luff of your sail. It's right here. So what it does is, this is the luff, and it pulls this down, so it makes this tighter. Okay? So you can do that while you're racing, and then if you have an adjustable outhaul, you can snug that up as well. If you're on the race course at this point and you are still overpowered, you pull your board up a few inches. You want it below the level of your boom so you don't go swimming in case something weird happens. But again, your goal is to have your boat flat going to windward with your sail in, because that's the most efficient way you can get to the windward mark when you're racing. Thank you.
So where can we find this?